Well, good afternoon, everybody. Lovely to see all of your faces. And thank you for inviting me to come here today. I love having the chance to come back to New York. It is the place I call home. And Betsy didn't say it, but we're sisters, if you couldn't tell. I'd like to start out today talking a little bit about my journey with God and grief. At 40, I was living in Southern California. I was newly married, working in a demanding but exciting job, and raising my soon-to-be teenage daughter. I considered myself an atheist at that time, and although I had attended church as a child every Sunday, I had no belief in God. I was proud of my success, and I was proud of the fact that I had done that all on my own. 5 years later, I was divorced, had been let go from that dream job, and my beautiful, intelligent 16-year-old daughter was struggling with addiction and living in a therapeutic boarding school. I was alone. Grieving the loss of my work, the end of another marriage, and the life I had imagined for my daughter. It was a devastating time, and it was just what I needed. It was those losses and that grief that finally brought me to my knees, literally. And God spoke to me in the most beautiful voice. He told me that I was not alone. At that time, I didn't fully understand what not being alone meant. But hearing it restored my hope and opened my heart. I knew that what God had just done for me was undeniable. It was that hour I first believed. I was thirsty for a relationship with God, and I wanted what you all had. So I started talking with people, went to Al-Anon meetings, tried praying and dipping my toes into going to church. And then I fast-tracked it all by enrolling in seminary. I wasn't going there to learn. I really didn't have a clear plan. But I was certain of a few things. I did not want to be a church pastor. I did not want to be ordained. And pastoral care was out of the question. I knew my limitations. But God knew that I didn't have any limitations, only fears. 7 years later, I had graduated and spent then the following year preparing to become ordained as a minister in the American Baptist Church. I have since pastored at 2 churches, and 8 years ago, I went back to school for a year of chaplaincy training and became a hospice chaplain, which is pastoral care on steroids. God called me, and he has been walking with me every step of the way, as have my family, friends, mentors, coworkers, and complete strangers. My time in the valley was just what I needed. I asked Betsy earlier for Kleenexes, and she said, "You think you're going to need a Kleenex while you're talking?" Coming from a person who cries at the drop of a hat. So today I'm going to try my best to share my experiences as a hospice chaplain, as well as all the different ways in which people respond to death and grieve throughout the dying process. I'm going to ask you all to share a little bit about some of your stories. So that's why you have those sheets of paper and the pencils on your tables. So let's start with that. I'd like you to think of a person who is important to you and who is now deceased. Take a minute to remember them, the special things that you did together, important conversations that you shared, how they showed their love for you, and how they felt in your arms. Please write down their name and your relationship to them. And take a minute to jot down what they meant to you and how they added to your life. Oh yeah, these sheets are two-sided too, by the way. I got a lot of work for you to do. Is there anyone who'd like to share their person with us and what they meant to you?
Hi everyone, my name is Mia. Hi Mia. I put in a weekday and he's my brother and I miss him dearly. It's been maybe 2 years. I think a little bit more than that, but he would check up on me all the time. He was very funny
Mm-hmm.
and made jokes every time there was something serious. He would make jokes so that I could laugh. And so I miss him very dearly.
Thank you. Yes.
Laura, my mom, Mrs. Howley, she meant everything to me, and I meant everything to her.
Oh,
She added meaning to my life. I was a caretaker, and unconditional love from her. No other. Yeah. And just one thing, I don't know, for example, to memories, because there's so many, but I had donated my kidney to her, and it lasted 15 years, and the average was 8 years. So just so blessed.
thank you. Thank you. Hospice care. Has anyone been involved in hospice care? Had a member of your family in hospice care? A couple of you. Both of our parents had hospice care at the end of our lives, and I hope that your experience was as wonderful as ours was. The goal of hospice care is to provide people with medical, emotional, and spiritual care and support during and after the dying process. People can choose to have hospice care after they have been diagnosed with a terminal illness, have a prognosis of 6 months or less to live, and have decided either not to have any further treatment or there is no further treatment available to them. Each patient has a care team consisting of a nurse, social worker, chaplain, nursing assistant, and physician. There are also pharmacists, grief counselors, and volunteers available to our families. Our patients are treated only for pain, anxiety, breathing difficulties, or other symptoms caused by their illness. We do not treat the illness itself. Hospice is a Medicare benefit. It covers the cost for your care team, as well as medications, equipment, oxygen, and supplies. It does not cover around-the-clock nursing care or the costs of living in a nursing facility. Hospice is a wonderful service that is often underutilized due to misconceptions or lack of understanding. When somebody first enters hospice care, many things change in their lives and in their families' lives. Roles reverse. Children become caregivers for their mothers. Wives are now making decisions on their own after decades of making decisions with their husbands. Patients lose their sense of freedom as they become tied to their homes and eventually to their beds. New financial and logistical difficulties arise that need to be addressed. Oftentimes, these changes can cause patients and families to feel hopeless and out of control, caught off guard by the unthinkable. They may be angry, in denial, exhausted, or overwhelmed. And often, both the patients and the families are experiencing what is called anticipatory grief. That means it is the grief that happens before you actually lose the person that you love. It's the time when a person acknowledges that I am at the end of my life, or this person that I love is going to die soon. Anticipatory grief is the beginning of the grieving process, and experiencing it can sometimes help when the person actually does die. I think the most difficult change for patients and families when they enter hospice is the shift in focus from extending life to helping a person die comfortably and peacefully. People have sometimes told me that going into hospice care feels like giving up. We are hardwired to live, and we are hardwired to keep our loved ones alive. As an example, when a person is actively dying, they stop eating because they no longer experience hunger and they are no longer able to digest food. Families will continue to coax their loved ones to eat, hovering over them with a spoon and a bowl of jello or applesauce, begging them to eat. And they do this because we know that food means life. Hospice care is not giving up. One of my mentors told me that hospice care it's not about death, it's about helping a person live their best life for the rest of their lives. So here we are. This isn't the news that we wanted to hear, and I'm losing the person I love, or my own life is ending. Hospice has been called. I'm not sure what to do or how to feel. And where is God in all of this? I'd like you to go back to your person that you wrote down, and I'd like you to recall when you first heard that they had a terminal disease or condition. Think about the feelings you experienced and what changed for you or your family. And describe your relationship with God during this time. What questions did you have? Yes, ma'am.
I remember I got a phone call from my son, and he told me that my 9-year-old granddaughter had cancer. I never forget that day. But I also know that God was present, right? And he knew I was going to get that phone call. So he put me in a place where somebody else that helped me, to maintain the outburst. And when I hung up the phone from my son, he said to me, "Don't you ever scream like that."
Oh,
I really didn't know, but I thank God that he was there and he told me what not to do in the time where my son was at getting that type of news. So, I mean, like, even experience that, it has allowed me to know that God already knew.
thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes. We take a lot of responsibility, don't we? That really isn't our responsibility, but we take that on. Thank you. The walk. As a chaplain, I walk into complete strangers' homes during this incredibly vulnerable time. I stop outside their doors and ask God for support and strength. And this may be the only time I ever walk through that particular door. Or I may have the blessing of spending months with this patient and their family. I have sat with thousands of people in their last days or months of life. Some patients are ready to die. They are tired. Others want to keep living as long as they can. My patients have ranged in age from 6 months to 107 years old. They have been parents with small children, 65-year-olds who have just retired and were looking forward to that time in their lives. My patients have been Christian and Muslim, Buddhists and non-believers. Many of them do not speak English, and we have cultural differences that need to be navigated. They are all sick and suffering with different diseases: cancer, ALS, liver or kidney disease, COPD or Alzheimer's disease. And each one of those lives has been precious to me. I can still remember many of them. As a chaplain, I have had to learn to connect with people quickly and to remain curious. I listen to people as they tell me about their lives. I ask them about the work they did, how they met their spouse, if it was love at first sight, and if they thought they were cute. We talk about their experience of God and what that relationship has meant to them. I ask them where and how they find comfort. They share their long-held secrets, regrets, and conflicts, and the things that they have left undone. And we talk about their grief. We try to find an answer to that question of where is God in all of this? Why does God allow me to suffer for so long? Why am I still alive when I no longer want to be? Why haven't my prayers been answered? Is God punishing me? Or have I had it wrong all along? Because my experience of God is not this, and it is not fitting into this experience at this time. I also have patients that don't have any questions because they have a strong faith and they know that their God is with them. They know that hope and love don't die when we die. Finally, my patients and I talk about their spiritual care, how often I will visit, and what the patient wants from me at this time. I have performed marriages, officiated at funerals, baptized patients, and served them communion. I pray with everyone who wants to be prayed with. One of the most moving things that I've experienced as a chaplain is when I pray the Lord's Prayer with people. Sorry. They almost always say it with me. The prayer of praise, hope, and faith is so deeply ingrained in Christians that patients with Alzheimer's disease who are unable to remember their own names, folks with COPD who can barely breathe and struggle for every breath, and people far along in the dying process have prayed every word of that prayer with me. It is amazing. They may question God and their faith, but that prayer is on their lips and in their hearts. I've also had patients and family members who have either threatened or committed suicide. And I have had patients who improve and graduate from hospice care. Let me tell you about two of my patients and what my walks with them were like. Aaron is a young man, 46 years old, with advanced multiple sclerosis. He is the father of 2 boys and has a beautiful wife. The family is Catholic, and for a while they attended church, but no longer can because of Aaron's physical decline. I have watched him decline and his disease progress over the last 5 years. He now requires 24-hour care. Aaron is unable to move at all. He wears a catheter and a colostomy bag because he can no longer urinate or defecate on his own. He has lost the meaning in his life. He feels, and his grief comes from being unable to do the things that he thinks a father and a husband should be doing. He describes himself as a piece of furniture in his own home. His relationship with his wife is in tatters, and his once held hopes for a cure or improvement have been replaced with anger and depression and blame. Aaron told me that his religion was important to him when he was younger, but he says that he has stopped praying because God has been silent for 15 years. None of his prayers have been answered, and sadly, his heart seems to be closed to a relationship with God. But every visit, he asks me to pray for him. Linda was a patient of mine who died several months ago. She was in her late 50s and had ALS. And if you've ever known anyone with ALS, it's a terrible disease. She too required 24-hour care and had lost the entire use of her body. She could no longer speak, and the only way that she could communicate was with her eyes. She had one of those devices that would track what she was looking at, and it would speak those words for her. Her husband had retired early so that he could care for her, and her 3 sons had come home to help. They told me about Linda, how wonderful she was, and that she had strong faith. At the end of my visit, I prayed with her, and she too mouthed the words to the Lord's Prayer as I spoke them. After our prayer, she sobbed silently, tears flowing, mouth and eyes open, with a look of intense grief on her face. I will never forget that. I called Betsy that day on my way home because I was so torn up by it. Linda was mourning the loss of future time with her family and a grandbaby that she would never meet. Her love of God and faith had not diminished, but she was understandably very sad. When I got up to leave that day, she thanked me. Of course, not all of my patients have stories that are this dramatic, but the answer to where God seems to fall into a few general categories. My love with God is strong, and He is right here with me. God has let me down. He isn't here with me, or He doesn't exist at all. And finally, I think God exists, and I am open to experiencing a true relationship with Him. Let's go back to your people. Do you feel that they were grieving in the weeks or months before they died? How did you know they were grieving? And did you know what they were grieving about? How did they find comfort? And did anyone struggle with the question of where God was in all of this pain? Yes. Mm-hmm.
So even more, I was just so much mad at God because I know God had peace, but I'm just mad that she had to go.
Yeah. Thank you. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the end of life. In the last week of a person's life, their body starts to change. Your lovely, loving mother stops eating. Your strong, in charge husband can no longer get out of bed and walk to the bathroom. Your beautiful friend now sleeps all the time, and the conversations that you shared stop. In the days before death, people are unable to swallow, and that saliva settles in their throat. When you hear about a death rattle, it's only that saliva that is pooled there. It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't give them any discomfort. It's just they are unable to swallow. They may only drink sips of water, and they can no longer digest food, and they don't eat. Their breathing becomes very shallow and infrequent, and their body temperature can fluctuate between having a fever and being very cold. As their heart weakens, blood starts to pool in their hands and in their feet and legs, and they turn dusky or dark. They are sleeping nearly 24 hours a day. They may also experience what's called terminal agitation, where they are picking at clothes or blankets or reaching out. All of this is normal. None of this is painful. Sometimes dying people get a glimpse of what comes next. They reach for things we cannot see. They talk to people who are not in the room. A patient of mine once pointed to the corner of a room and told me that Jesus was standing right over there. Don't you see him? Look in the corner. Her face and her eyes were shining. I've never had a single patient who found these experiences anything but joyful. We have been educating the family about what to expect at the end of life. We have talked about the symptoms and the things that they're going to experience. We've told them to call their friends and their families to come and say goodbye. My Catholic patients have been anointed or received their last rites. Funeral home choices are done. We have done everything that we can prepare for a person's death. I experience the end of life as a sacred, holy time, a time to recall and share stories with each other, remembering what your loved one meant to you. There's a Hawaiian ritual called the Ho'oponopono. I've been practicing that Ho'oponopono prayer. People say these words to their dying loved ones. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Oftentimes, patients are waiting to hear these words so that they can let go. And although they're unresponsive to voice or touch, it doesn't mean that they can't hear your words or feel your presence. They just can't acknowledge it. As a chaplain, my conversations with my patients stop. Instead, I sit bedside, offer them words of comfort, remind them of God's love and the gift that they are to us. I thank them for the love that they have put into our world. I offer blessings and hold hands. I tell them God is right here with us and that we are all wrapped in his love. Julian of Norwich, a 13th century mystic, had a vision in which Jesus said to her, all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. I know this is true. Amidst the loss and the tears, all truly is well. And so I share these words with my patients. I pray and I sing. It's not often that I'm present at the time of a patient's death, but when I am, it holds no fear for me. In my experience of death in hospice care, it comes quietly and is often a slow process. At the very end of life, breaths slow dramatically, coming only once every 30 to 60 seconds, and then they stop. A sacred time as they return to God. Let's go back to those people that you've loved. What were your feelings when you first heard or knew of their death? Were you present with them when they died? What does death mean to you? And what do you believe comes after death? Take a few minutes. It should be on the back of your sheets. Would somebody like to share with us about what that time of death was like for them? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I know for about 8 years that my son was gone. He was deteriorating, and I knew the time would come. And a couple days before he passed, I was sleeping, and I felt his pain, and it wasn't my pain. So I asked, and I said, "Who is this?" And he said, "It's me, Mom." And let me tell you, my son was very special to me. But he lives through my granddaughter now. And I feel now much at peace because he's finally at the peace he needed. He was struggling to get PTSD, and his heart became broken.
Yeah.
Once his heart became broken, he spent out of control. He started drinking and drinking because his heart was broken. Killed him. I believe he was drinking and he had sugar diabetes. And he kept on telling his wife, and me that he would kill himself for that. And that's what I believe, just because when they found him, he was a week past in his trailer home. They did a wellness check, and that's the only time when he didn't appear in court. They came to his house and he was dead. But when I first heard it, I was in church and we was praying.
Oh.
She told me I knew he was dead. In my spirit, I knew he was dead. I felt it. And I said, no, he's too young. But now I feel more peaceful because finally he said peace, he needed peace. He didn't have peace. He didn't have peace. He tried to take the world upon his shoulders. And his daughters was everything to him.
Yeah.
And I'm happy the Lord, he didn't do it in front of them. You know what I mean? Because they would have been messed up. But I know now Mark, his name is Mark. He touched my life in so many ways, and I'm very, how you say, very grateful that I had him. Okay?
Thank you.
And now I'm dealing with my husband, but I know it's not time for him yet.
Yeah. Thank you. Does anybody else want to share? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Angel. I go by Angel. My brother, he was a person who could help anybody. But when I began David's life, and he was Mr. Fix-It. And what happened to him was he was killed for the sight of the Lord. But as he was in pain, he was hardly walk. So God didn't want him to suffer. I believe that death, they sleep away from the time you get to him. Jesus would call them all home and judge them according to their works. So I believe that he would go home to be with God. I'm a believer. I believe that there's a reason for everything. God has a purpose, and when you live in your purpose, He will protect that. He will protect you and protect your purpose. And when your purpose is fulfilled, He will call you home. So God is always there. He is always in control. And I love the Lord and I love everybody. Amen.
Amen. I have so much more that I could talk about. I'll just talk a little bit about what happens after the death of one of our patients. So, like I said, it's a joy to be with people when they do pass. It's a sacred moment, but I'm not there often. But fortunately, I get to be with people, with families after their loved one has died. I do their funerals a lot. I'm the mouthpiece for people that cannot stand up and talk about the person they've lost because it's too emotional for them. So I get to tell their stories, and it's wonderful. We also have bereavement services one time a year where people who have died and their families come back, and we have a service with them, a service of remembrance. And I stay in touch with people. And I have family members that come into hospice that I have had patients with, and that's a wonderful experience for me also. So grief is a process that is different for everyone. It's personal. You may have heard about the stages of grief: anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Those happen, and so do all other kinds of emotions. Don't feel that something is wrong if you do not experience each stage of grief or in a certain order. It will take you as long as it takes you to get to a point of acceptance, and sometimes you never get there at all. Grieving also doesn't stop when you reach acceptance. You know those cards that when you open them up, they're full of glitter or confetti or something, and you like the card, but you're like, oh, I gotta clean all this stuff up now? I think grief can be like that because months after someone has died, you are still finding those pieces of glitter. You are still in situations where you remember that person, and that pain is just as intense and deep as it was at the time they died. My best friend died a few years ago, and I think about her all the time. I don't think of her as lost to me because I have our memories and all the things she taught me about being a good human being and a good friend. But I do mourn what life would be like if she were still here. I have accepted her death, but I still feel pain when I encounter those pieces of glitter. We all grieve differently. It was several months after my father's death when I finally cried, and I still haven't cried about my mother's death. Talking about my grief helps. Sharing memories helps. And building other relationships to fill the gaps my parents and my friend have left behind has been essential. And most of all, I turn to God for comfort. One last thing I'd like you to share with me, if you can, is what your grieving process has been like. Is there a particular stage of grief that you find yourself in? And what did this experience of death teach you? I wrote those questions down on your sheets. Yes.
Back in 2019, December 27th, I walked down to my mom's apartment and I found her laying there. There were no signs, there was nothing. She was always going to the doctor, taking care of herself. And so I got down there and, talking to her like I normally talk. And she's not responding, she's not saying anything, which is not normal. So when I went to her, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And I started touching her, she didn't move. So I called 911 and I started doing CPR on her because that was the only thing that I could do. And as a Christian, I'm praying, I'm reading scriptures, by your stripes you're healed, Lord, you're going to do something. And, for 15, 20 minutes, I'm praying and decreeing and declaring, doing CPR on my mom. The ambulance comes and they check her over and they said there's nothing more they can do. So
Yeah.
Why wasn't God listening to me? And I've heard people say that they weren't angry, but I was angry. I was angry because my mom was a devoted Catholic and she loved God. I was angry because I'm a devoted Christian and I love God. I was angry because I've heard people say that when they cried out to God, He answered. They didn't answer me at that time. I was angry because when I read the Word, I read about how He healed people who asked Him. I was angry because I needed Him right then and there to do what I heard Him do for other people that He didn't do for me. So I was angry. And for months, I couldn't pray,
Mm.
I couldn't sing, I couldn't worship, I couldn't write music, I couldn't do anything. I was stuck in a realm of anger because I could not understand how the God who loved me so much could take the one person that I loved so much and for months I couldn't pray. For months I was sick. I couldn't understand until God had to finally speak to me. And when He spoke, everything started to make sense. So I heard you when you were talking about purpose because you were so on point. He said, I took her because her assignment was over.
Mm.
Her assignment was to raise you and your brother. And she's completed her assignment. And before she was your mother, she was my daughter first. And we forget that our siblings or our parents or whoever it is that we lost belong to God first. And so when He spoke that to me, it started giving me understanding. The Word says, in all you're getting, get an understanding. And I couldn't understand why this happened to me. So my grieving process was, I stopped working and I was alone for a while because I didn't know how to deal with the loss of the one person who was my ride or die, who was my first expression of love on this earth, my mom. And I just want to encourage somebody today that whoever it is that you have lost, understand that there is a time and a season for everything.
Mm-hmm.
God has not forgotten you. God is not punishing you. God is not trying to hurt you. But if that person is in pain, He is releasing them from that pain. And it took me a long time to understand that my separation from my mom was a good thing. Because at the end of the day, she is in a place where she is forever loved by the Most High God. She is in a place where she ain't got to pay no taxes. She ain't got to worry about reuniting with people that she lost. And I have learned, and it's taken me years to do this, but I have learned to be happy for her. And I just look forward to the day when she and I will be reunited. So anyone in here who is going through grief, it's okay to say, you know what, Lord, I'm angry. Lord, I don't understand why you're doing this. I don't understand why you took this person from me at this time. It's okay to say those things. It's okay to be honest with God about how you're feeling. Because until you do that, you become a prisoner of what you're feeling. And it's not meant for you to be a prisoner. It's for you to release it and to let it go so you can move on with your life.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for sharing that love and your experiences with each one of us. Today, settle down. 2 more minutes. Today, a very, very close friend of mine is at the end of her life. And if she has not already died, she will be dying in the next couple of hours. It's been a hard time for me. And this was a hard thing for me to write while that was all happening. But it was also a release to me, to remind myself that she's going back to God. People ask me all the time how I do my work. It's not an easy job, but it is incredibly fulfilling. There have been nights when I go home and cry, and on several occasions I've had to take a hiatus for some self-care. But I get to pray all day long. I meet people that I would otherwise never encounter, and I get to know them and share their faith. I am where God asked me to be. When people ask me how I do what I do, I tell people that it is the best job in the world, and they should be jealous. Thank you all. Bless you all.